So this is the Newcastle P3 Clinical Trials Unit, the new commercial research unit, primarily focused on recruiting from the community. So the type of research that we're looking to undertake is commercial research that's late phase, common chronic conditions where the patients aren't in hospital practice, they're not in specialist clinics, they're out in the community. And we want to reach out to those patients. Reaching out to the community is a fantastic way of doing research. It benefits patients, it benefits the organisation, it benefits the commercial companies doing research, and it benefits the country. So patients are often not involved in research because they're not going to the right clinic at the right time. If you reach out to the community, there's greater inclusivity. For the companies, commercial companies sponsoring research, we recruit faster to their trials, but we also have more meaningful results because the patients are more typical. They're not just the patients with the most refractory illness that are in specialist clinics. And for the country, we're able now to attract studies that would previously go to other areas such as Eastern Europe, and we can now do those in the UK.
In order to be able to recruit patients into clinical trials, especially for these ones which are chronic diseases, looking at episodic migraines and diverticular disease, we're having to look outside secondary care, we're having to look into primary care for these patients because these patients are seeking their healthcare advice from community pharmacists, local GPs, different healthcare providers. It's good to be able to work collaboratively with GPs, to be able to offer studies that they wouldn't be able to have access to, or perhaps GP practices don't have the resources or the facilities to do studies. It's about enabling the patient population access to these studies because everybody should have an opportunity to participate in clinical research.
In running clinical research, there are barriers in secondary care and barriers in primary care. In secondary care, the biggest barrier is that the research is being undertaken by clinical teams who are really busy and have lots of other commitments, and it's not their primary focus. But also, there's difficulty connecting with many patients with common chronic conditions which are no longer looked after in secondary care because of our brilliant primary care system. In primary care, the problems are in getting the studies awarded because pharmaceutical companies are less keen on primary care research, partly because each primary care practice only looks after a relatively small population of the population of patients. What we've done is built a bridge between these two. So we are a secondary care site, but we work really closely with primary care. We work in a collaborative way, and we're able to reach out to patients in the community through that system. One example of how this system works is the commercial trial called Relieve IBSD, which initially was planned to recruit from secondary care, but secondary care units have struggled to recruit well, and we've brought in a community outreach with direct advertising, with GP sites recruiting, with pharmacy recruitment, with social media recruitment, and the study has been really boosted, and we've now recruited over 180 patients in under a year.
So my advice to any pharma companies looking to set up a study within a chronic disease area such as irritable bowel disease or episodic migraines would be to look outside secondary care, look towards primary care or collaboratively within both settings because the patients are there. Patients mainly go to community pharmacists for self-medication, for advice on how to treat the symptoms, or they go to the GP practices where they've got a good relationship with their GP.
there's a huge power to recruiting from the community which isn't being fully utilised. And what I would say to commercial companies recruiting to trials of common chronic diseases is consider the community setting. Reach out to your local GP leads, to the research networks who understand GP practices, and to units like our own.